Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I think we need to pause for a moment and be honest about what this interpellation is really about. Let's pause for a moment. It is, and I think it's obvious, it is clearly an attempt to use a school to pivot, to deflect, and to draw attention away from the monumental international relations shambles on Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. We're all familiar with this issue. The shambles began with the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Naledi Pandor, believe it or not, calling for Russia to withdraw from the Ukraine. But then there was an about turn and the national government fell back on its proclamation of non-alignment. But of course, that was before the Lady R political bomb dropped, blowing that claim out of the water. The fact is that South Africa's warm embrace of Russia is clear and present danger, with our AGOA benefits now teetering on the brink and thousands of jobs on the line in the Western Cape. That is the real issue. That is what this interpellation is really about. Of course.
1 minute, Mr. 1 minute, Honourable Member. Minister, if you could just take your seat. What is your point of order?
Point of order, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The interpellation is based on a question. The Honourable MEC has failed to answer the question. He's speaking about Russia and Ukraine. What has it got to do with Russia and Ukraine? Stick to responding to the question. If he's embarrassed about the DA stance in supporting apartheid Israel, then he must just tell us that he's embarrassed.
Thank you very much,
that he wants to isolate Russia and Ukraine issue and come and praise them on that.
I note relevance, but I'm still not here to judge the minister's response. But the minister does know there is a rule around relevance. So I caution just on that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The honourable member needs to be patient. But of course, the real issue is Russia and the Ukraine. Of course, the honourable member knows all independent schools are required to follow the regulations relating to registration of and subsidies to independent schools. Support provided to independent schools is largely related to curriculum assessment and examination matters. The school in question receives such support, but it does not receive a financial subsidy from our department. But the fact is, Deputy Speaker, no amount of pivoting, deflecting, zigzagging, or pirouetting will draw attention away from the monumental international relations shambles on Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. It is extraordinary that a person like the honourable member, who professes to care about human rights, especially the rights of our children, would support a country whose leader has been charged with the forced relocation of 16,000 children. So I'll take this opportunity to ask the honourable member a question. Does he support Vladimir Putin, yes or no? And given the fact that he was posing for selfies with the Russian Consul General Alexei Molenko and celebrating Russia's National Day a few days ago, I think we already know the answer to the question. The Honourable Khalid is undoubtedly Vladimir Putin's fanboy.
Thank you very much. I now recognise the Honourable Sayed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I hope...
Honourable Member, if you can just take your seat. Honourable members on both sides of the House, could we have some order, please, so that we can continue with the interpellation? Honourable Bakafors, Honourable Barnes, everybody, please. Thank you so much. I see Honourable Bakafors. No, it's Honourable Barnes, yes. Over, you may proceed.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I hope that the Honourable Maynier is ready with their leap officers to effect the laughable arrest of the Russian president. And just to indicate, the African National Congress position on the issue of Russia and Ukraine is the same as that of national government, and he knows it full well.
Members,
3 weeks ago, in an interview with Ms. Lida Grave-Lazzi,
Honorable Bakufos, now it is you. I know, but I cannot hear the Honorable Sayed. Cannot hear him. You may proceed, Honorable Sayed.
3 weeks ago, Honorable Deputy Speaker, in an interview with Ms. Lida Grave-Lazzi of the ILTV Israel News, Mr. Jeff Cohen, the Director of Education, and Mr. Andries van Reensen, the Executive Director at Herzlia High School in Cape Town, confirmed the school's strong relations to political Zionism and the apartheid state of Israel. But obviously for the DA, if it's an apartheid state, it doesn't matter because they are protectors of the apartheid legacy. Some of them we know fought in the apartheid defense force and were in the Air Force. I'm not going to mention the name here, but we know he's in this house. In response to a question as to why it is important for the learners to maintain a strong connection to Israel, Mr. van Reensen said, what we find is that quite a large portion of our matriculants after the final year of schooling are going to Israel. At the moment, 22% of our pupils go to Israel the year after school, either to study or go to the army. So that connection is a very real one, and we are trying to make it practical, close quote. It is critical that we recognize the power and influence of educational institutions in shaping young minds and molding our leaders. By maintaining ties with the apartheid state of Israel, schools in the Western Cape risk compromising their integrity and undermining the values that they seek to impart. Israel's policies towards the Palestinian people have long been subject of international concern and scrutiny. The Israeli government's ongoing illegal occupation of Palestinian territories, expansion of illegal settlements. Yes, 1967, post-67 occupation is considered illegal. Read the United Nations resolutions. And violation of human rights have been extensively documented by numerous human rights organizations. The UN and various countries have condemned these actions, recognizing them as obstacles to peace and justice in the region. It is distressing to learn that schools in our province, meant to foster critical thinking, empathy, and a commitment to justice, are associated with a regime and military that inflicts such injustices.
Thank you, Honourable Sayed. Thank you very much. I now recognise the Honourable Bartman.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Given that the Minister has indicated that the respective school does not receive financial support from the department, I do note that in Programme 3 of this year's 2023 budget, pages 187 to 189, in case Hansard wanted to know, deal with the Independent School Subsidies Programme in the Western Cape, with the purpose stating, quote, to support independent schools in accordance with the South Africa Schools Act, quote, close, and sets aside 152 million rand for the program. To note, that is about 0.5% of the total education budget, Deputy Speaker, of 29 billion rand. And this is in comparison to the 20 billion rand of the 29 billion rand budget, or approximately 69.85% of the budget that is being set aside for the public ordinary schools program. So given this, I wanted to find out how are these funds then supporting independent schools in the Western Cape per the requirements of the South African Schools Act. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bartman. I recognise the Honourable Cassiem.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, it is an insult to watch this DA government act innocent in condemning a war in Ukraine, but they're doing absolutely nothing with regards to this specific school, which is aligned to an apartheid state of Israel and which encourages and teaches its learners to partake in apartheid. Section 46 of the South African Schools Act gives the MEC the power to determine grounds on which the registration of independent schools may be granted or withdrawn by this HOD. So here we already established that the department could register and then also deregister any independent school. Speaker, it is very clear, and it's done publicly on the school's websites and social media pages, that they encourage their students to go to Israel to join the army, and it is something very dear to them, and that they encourage yearly. So with this being said, Speaker, what I want to know from the Minister through you, Speaker, And also as a reminder of how the Premier also planned to utilize leap officers on Putin, I would like to know from the Deputy Speaker, will the Minister's Department deregister the school based on the fact that it is pro-Israel and that it engages in politics which are inhumane and which encourages learners to condone in apartheid? What is the Minister going to do about this issue? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I believe it is absolutely shameful that a question like this is posed in this House. This school, Herzlia, is doing exceptionally well with 100% pass rate and over 95% obtaining university exemption. Now, Speaker, let me put it on record. Let me put this on record, that the ACDP supports Israel. And we support Israel, and they've got the right to defend themselves. They've got the right to defend themselves. I want to state on record, this is an independent school that does exceedingly well, and the ANC will stoop so low to bring it to this House. Why? Why? Don't use school children in order for your political agenda. You have no place, you have no right.
Order, members. Just stop the clock. Honourable Christians, just take your seat. Honourable members, can I have your order, please? If you can just have your attention. Remember that you can't tell other people to say things you don't want to hear. It's the ACDP's response, and we need to honour that it's his response. So please, you must also allow him to speak so that I can hear him. So, Honourable Christians, you may proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I had the privilege to visit the school not so long ago. I'll go back and learn from them how do we improve our education system, because the example, I thank you.
Thank you, the Honourable Christians. I now recognise the Honourable Syed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I am not surprised by the Honourable Christians' response. You will also learn from them how to go and assist the murderous Israeli soldiers, because he's a defender of the years, yet again, like he has supported the homophobes, he's now also supporting the racist apartheid state and their military. And we are not surprised that the DA is in a moonshot coalition with the ACDP. They are both on the right of our political spectrum. MEC Maynier's response is typical of the DA when it comes to dealing with the promotion of racism and oppression. The DA simply takes a pedestrian approach on such matters and wants to shift the goalpost. Moreover, this particular school's ties with Israel risks creating an environment of exclusion and discomfort for students who sympathize with the plight of the Palestinian people. In 2018, when Member Christians was a member of this House, a storm erupted at the school after 2 students went down on one knee in protest at the treatment of Palestinians during the playing of the Israeli national anthem at Herzlia High. The students were themselves Jewish and believed that the gesture, first introduced in 2016 to draw attention to police brutality and racial inequality in the US, was appropriate. It was an appropriate form of protest against Israel's illegal occupation of Palestinian territories and aggression against innocent people. In fact, in this year alone, 158 innocent Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli regime. In response to the protest, the same Mr. Jeff Cohen of the school said the boys' protest was embarrassing, inappropriate, and it brought the school into disrepute. As a result of their protest, the learners were disciplined by the school. The DA was silent on that. Member Christians was silent on that. In 2016, Daniel Linder, a lawyer with Equal Education Law Society, yes, our allies, MEC Maynier, and Herzlia alumnus, briefly mentioned the occupation when addressing the learners. Principal Mark Falconer objected to Linder's reference to Palestinian human rights. and assured parents that the school would immediately enforce a more rigorous process of vetting future speakers at the school. Schools should be safe spaces for all students, irrespective of their backgrounds or beliefs or their perspectives, by endorsing partnerships with Israel, by silencing those who are critical of Israeli oppression. Herzlia is marginalizing and silencing even some of its own learners and those who have been to the school. The ANC trusts that freedom-loving voters will, in these elections, see through the DA's spin and unmask their complicity with pro-apartheid indoctrination. I thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The school is an independent school, and we will certainly not be deregistering the school. The real issue, as I have said before, is a desperate attempt on the part of the honourable member to pivot, to deflect, and to draw attention away from his own party's failings, including what I've called the monumental international shambles on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The real insult here is that a person who professes to care about human rights would support a country whose leader has been charged with the forced relocation of 16,000 children. The real insult here, Deputy Speaker, the real insult here, and it is disgraceful that members of the opposition would be partying up a storm with Consul General Alexei Malenko in the middle of Russia's devastating war of aggression in Ukraine. And it is indeed shameful that this honourable member has used a school to play politics here in the Western Cape. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That brings us to the end of interpellation 2.